partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 356. I got the fellas back on here from Valley Transportation. So Brad and Parker, how you guys doing?
Excellent. Good, Casey.
Good, man. So it's a little bit different feel than I think we had probably this time last year, right, Brad? I mean, you guys were fighting a backlog of freight and kind of working your way through it. So I guess what's the difference between this time last year and what you see right now?
Well, I think the major changes that we're seeing is the slowdown in the economy. You know, the van and reefer side was starting to see it last year. And we maybe didn't see it so much, but they're really feeling it now. You know, that side has dropped off drastically. Ours is starting to slow down a little bit, but as far as the open deck side, but still moving fair, you know, but I think we're seeing the interest rate increases are starting to wake people up and realize what this stuff's costing when they got to finance it, you know. So.
Yeah. It doesn't take long to get a fairly decent interest, a paycheck, right? Interest deduction, I guess, from what you're actually paying there when you start looking at $400,000 and $500,000 times 6 and 7% interest rates. That tends to add up pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
So on the truck side, let's talk about that. So this time last year, you were struggling to find trucks and availability for trucks for your fleet and those kind of things. How's that changed for you, and what's that look like now?
That's freed up a lot too. You know, we seem to be getting things in a lot better and have more availability. We've actually even had some offers on some trucks that people have turned down that they had on order that are coming in, and they walked away from the order. So
okay.
We've seen some of that stuff. So, you know, the nice thing on that side is some of these bigger carriers that are not taking the trucks, we can operate off of they call it a car, and it's their discount on that equipment. So we can capture their car and buy that equipment for the prices that they have on it. So we've seen some decent prices come through. So
Yep. So Parker, when you're looking
at down on the equipment side, when you talk about the availability, is the equipment, you know, ag equipment a lot easier to come by as well?
You know, we're seeing it start to kind of free up a little bit. I don't want to sit here and tell you that it's gumdrops and candy canes, because we still see delays and allocations and those kind of things that are coming into play. The things that are holding stuff up now are stuff I can't believe that's holding it up, you know, but it's definitely better than it was. There's no doubt about that. And we're starting to see some movement. It's also, I mean, this is exactly kind of what I thought would happen here, was that, and I don't want to sound like I'm a world-class economist here when I say this, but there's a thing called supply and demand. And when supply starts hitting up with demand and they start meeting with each other, prices tend to come down, and that's what we're seeing right now. So it's and it's blowing people's minds right now with that knowledge I just dropped on you right there. But they have we're starting to see that a little bit, and kind of back to what you're saying, Brad, I don't want to say that it's slowed down to where people aren't doing anything. but it's not, I'll take it. It's not just as soon as they walk in the door, they're not just screaming, I'll take it. As soon as they walk in the door, they're saying, let me think about it. And then we'll kind of kick it around a little bit and start looking at that. There's a lot of
kind of going back to what it used to be, kind of the normalcy.
Yeah, very much normal, kind of slowing back down. And I think the crazy thing about the marketplace that I think is happening right now is it's not so much that there's some massive correction and the market's collapsing on. It's just all this, I've got the one tractor in 4 states that's for sale that someone can come buy. So here's my price type of thing. I think that's starting to wear off, and that normal amount of pricing starting to come back down. I'm sure you guys see it on the truck side too, where just because it's available anymore doesn't mean that you're going to pay a king's ransom for it. You're going to, there's some more normal pricing you're starting to see pop up on trucks, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But they're still selling good. I mean, we've been
Yeah.
selling them right along, so like you said, it's not like things have stopped. It's just they're more cautious, I think.
Yeah. I talked with a guy the other day, and he we're talking about tractors or something, I don't know what we're talking about, but he's like, man, we're really starting to see things slow down. I mean, it's getting tight around here. I was like, really? What are you talking about that? And we're going back and forth, and he's like, whatever it was we were talking about, he's like, man, I've had these sitting on the lot for a while and starting to kind of worry about them. I'm like, well, how long have you had them? He's like, I've had these things for almost a month, and I'm like, man, it's just that's okay. That's pretty normal.
Right.
It's not 24 hours anymore. I mean, you gotta give it a little bit of time here before you start wanting to kill something. Let's give it a little breathing area here. But so, I mean, it's just the point of reference too, I think, is what's shocking a lot of people about stuff that's turning and what that looks like too. So, but I mean, there's hot spots too. I mean, combines are combines, they're combines. That's what they do, and
Right.
so, I think that's going to continue to be some issues that we see there too, with that. But, Parker, when you're out looking around and you're looking at guys and booking freight and those kind of things, like where do you see some real activity at right now? Is it kind of everywhere, or is it very consolidated in a few spots?
It's everywhere. I mean, the phones, the phones are still ringing, freight's still coming in. We're still moving our trucks, and I'm kind of going back to that word normalcy. Like, last year at this time, I mean, you're basically turning freight away because you couldn't keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, you're taking everything you can get, and it's getting moved in a timely fashion. And, the prices have come down, but I mean, I think they're steady. It ain't when fuel is jumping $1 every couple of weeks or something like that, and you're trying to keep up
Right.
with it. I mean, it's steady right now, so
Yep.
that's helping, and helping the end user, I guess, as well. On he's not paying $6-7 a mile in freight. It's back to what it was.
Right. Yeah. I think that's that's one of the things that you're seeing. Even with OPEC doing what they did with oil and trying to kind of cap the market there a little bit, it still hasn't really done much. We're actually back down off the highs of when they did that. So price of fuel is being very cooperative, I guess, with the economic status that we're seeing right now. So that's got to
Still
be
high, but
it's not as
kind
high.
of flat.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's talk about a couple of things here. You guys have kind of sent me to talk about here a little bit, and we'll get to, I think probably the easiest one to start with here is just this time last year. And, and everybody's in the same boat, but Brad, as you look at the pool of drivers that you have now and the line of drivers coming in, how's that looking right now? And are you seeing a spike up at all in folks wanting to come in to be a driver, or is that kind of still about the same situation?
I think it's starting to free up and get a little easier. We've seen more coming in the door than we were a year ago at this time, when the economy was booming and they could go just anywhere. Now we're starting to see guys that are actually looking for work and coming in, and we're actually finding some quality stuff, quality guys that got the experience. And so there's some of that's going to help us a lot too, just to get the seats back full. So
yeah. Yep. When you're looking at some of these kids coming in, like what's the, I guess when you're looking at going through the steps of becoming a driver, like, are you running into anything there that's raising a bit of concern about maybe something that you're running into, background checks, those kind of things? Or are you having any issues with a specific area with these drivers?
Not so much. The biggest challenge I see nowadays is the entry level driver that wants to get his license and get his CDL. They're making it very difficult for him to get that CDL. There's schooling that's required now and things they got to do in order to get that. When we were farm kids, we went down to the driver license bureau and got our CDL, or got our Class A license. So, but now it's not that easy. So there's a lot more to it, and we require more. I think we put a lot of emphasis on trying to push people away because we got many regulations on what they got to do, and and that's driven a lot by our insurance companies. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's challenging now for somebody to get into this business.
Yep. So you have one thing in here that I thought I never even thought about this and what that looks like. But I live on I-80 and driving back and forth across the state of Nebraska on I-80, you see tons and tons of truck traffic. Every truck stop you drive by, they're chock full of trucks, and it makes sense now after reading what you have here. But the shortage of truck parking and driver fatigue and what that looks like. And that's something I never really thought much about. And because especially with electronic guide or log books and those kind of things now, there's no really, it's harder to circumvent the system than it used to be. So I guess when you're looking at the number of miles a driver can actually drive in a day, and then you start looking at, where they can stop for the night or to get their 8 hours or whatever it is that they need of downtime, of off time, that plays a big role in that too. And if you start looking at driver shortages, that even compounds the problem even further. So I guess talk a little bit about that and how's that affecting your business?
Yeah. So, once that driver goes on duty in the morning, he's got 14 hours to get his 10 hours of driving in. So, if he's loading or doing anything outside of that, the actual driving, that'll burn up that extra 4 hours in a hurry. And then he's only got his 10 hours of driving. So, if he's driving along in the morning and he decides he gets tired and wants to lay down for an hour, he's got to really think about whether he can do that or not, so it's forcing these guys to be fatigued because they got to keep going to get their miles on for that day.
Right.
And it's a big problem. And then, at 5 o'clock at night, he's got to be starting to think about where he's going to park because, he's running out of room.
Right.
And, you go by you run up and down that interstate and you go by these truck stops. They got 5 spaces left, and they got big signs showing you now how many truck spots are left in the rest areas. So,
yeah,
and then you go by some and they're 14, 15 out on the other end.
Yeah.
Just because there's no space in the rest area, so. Yep. It becomes a huge challenge when you're oversized and big and long and heavy. Yep. Because you can't just pull in anywhere and park those things, so our drivers, they run out a lot of their operating daytime just because they got to quit early.
Right. And that's one thing I see a lot, like you just talked about there, especially at, one thing I like to do when I'm just by myself is just drive through the night and to get to where I'm going, because it's less traffic, and not, right. And typically it's just you and the other truck drivers out there, and you'll go by those rest areas and they'll be clear full in the parking lot, and they'll be down the shoulder. There might be, 10 or 15 right. trucks stacked in there. And that's a safety issue. Then you start talking about guys getting out of the truck and into the truck and walking up and down the thing and everything else. It's just, it creates a bigger issue than just not having a place to stop. So it's a bigger deal.
And they're a half mile to a mile away from the rest area or yeah. restrooms, yeah. So it's a huge inconvenience for those drivers too.
Yep. We see a lot of guys out here, pulling those windmill, stuff, trucking across the country, and a lot of those blades or whatever they are, 100 feet long or whatever, 200 feet long or whatever it is that they are. And those guys, I don't know how they function, because like you said, you just can't just go whipping into someplace with that thing. You got to have
Right.
turnaround space and all kinds of things to get in there. And that's getting to be a bigger and bigger thing too. We had a couple places here, right here by right down by Kimball, down over here, Kimball, Nebraska, where they just cleared off a I don't know, 5-acre area that's just, and there's nothing there but just a parking spot. And that's, you see a lot of trucks parked in there too. So you're starting to see some stuff like that pop up. I see more and more of those kind of just empty lot type deals that are just kind of popping up places here and there. And
for those windmills, they got actual trip planners. So they got that trip planned out, and they got spots all the way along the route that they got to hit.
Is that right? Okay.
And they get to, so just because they know they can't park just anywhere,
Yeah. That's, I can't imagine that. The first guy to pull one of those windmill blades across the country would kind of blind. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right. So now the next thing I guess to talk about now is marijuana. And again, didn't think much about it because whatever, there's 30 states or whatever it is that have legalized marijuana, or at least decriminalized it anyway, to some extent, across the country. And but it's still a federally banned substance. So from a federal motor carrier standpoint, I guess if some guy goes in and takes a drug test and it shows up marijuana in it, for all intents and purposes, they're incapable of driving, right?
Correct.
So what's the process to get them? That's ridiculous. So what's the process to get them back into being able to drive again?
They've got to go through a substance control school, and and they spend I don't know what it is, 2-3 days with a person that gets them all back on track and gives them all the reasons why they shouldn't be doing that and can't be driving with it. And they got to pass that class before we can even look at them and consider for a rehire. So,
wow.
And they might not even smoke that. It could have been just contact.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the other side of it too. I mean,
you get the smallest trace in there, and you'd won't be able to be hired.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So when you're looking at, obviously, alcohol is one of those things too, but alcohol doesn't stay in your system as long as marijuana does. What's it, like 10 days or something like that? 7 days or something like that stays in your system. So now you've got, I guess it always depends on how much you did. But if you're looking at that situation, now you've got, it's just like saying, don't drink beer because you might, obviously don't drink beer while you're driving. But if you have a few pops the night before and as long as you're under the limit, you take off and drive, you're fine. But same thing with that. If you go take a urine test, something like that, and have alcohol in your system, it's a whole different scenario than it is if you have marijuana in your system. So I guess, how have you guys run into that issue a lot where you're having this problem pop up?
Not so much, I would think. Drivers know that they're going to have to take a test as soon as they get to, your hiring process. Like, it'd be pretty silly if they, are an avid smoker and showed up to a job interview to be a truck driver where you have zero tolerance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't see that a lot. We don't run into that. Occasionally we'll catch somebody on a random, because we got to do random tests that they pick the drivers out of the pool and on who's got to do a random, and they increased that number up to like 25% of our driving fleet. So every quarter there's 25% of our guys that have to take a drug and alcohol test. So
yeah, that's crazy. So as you're looking at, I guess kind of wrap things up here. So as you're looking at these two things we're talking about here, just overall, just driver safety, driver fatigue, and then some of these other regulations it's just crazy that it's legal, that marijuana is legal in at one's place. Like if I go to California or Colorado or whatever else, and I want to walk down the street and smoking a joint, then that's totally fine. No one's going to do anything to you. But let me, 5 days later, go take a drug test. And then now I can't drive a truck. I mean, it doesn't seem like that makes any sense to me, but nothing the government does tends to make sense to me either. So that's probably a conundrum there, I guess, of sorts. But I guess
think it's pretty much legal in Minnesota now too. I think they're working on getting it passed as well.
Yeah. I think most states have decriminalized it. I mean, you're not going to get, as long as you don't have like 10 pounds, you're going to be okay.
Right. Yeah. Intent to distribute and all that different stuff. Right. But if you got a few gummies and a little bit of weed or something like that, sitting at home, whatever.
Yeah. So it's a crazy thing. So I guess kind of wrapping this thing up, I guess, as you take a look at both these things, Brad and Parker, what are some of the things that you're really kind of paying attention to, really keeping your eye on the ball on here for the rest of 23, and what are some of the things that you have concern about?
Well, I think
the door.
The biggest concern that I'm seeing is just hoping that we don't slow this thing down so much that it stops,
Right. Yeah.
So I think we're going to see another interest rate hike coming up here soon, and probably a quarter, and then everything I'm hearing is going to start backing down, so
yep.
Going into late season here, we could see some reductions in that interest rate, and then throughout 24, I think we'll see more, so
right.
Hopefully they just haven't overdone it, but it definitely was effective and did what they wanted it to do. So let's hope they didn't go too far, so.
Yeah. That's the,
that interest thing is absolutely nuts, my dad farms and I do as well. And like our operating note is like, it was almost 9%. They backed it down to 8%. I'm like, that's pretty tough on, a farmer trying to get by, with the rising costs in fertilizer and seed and all that other stuff, fuel. And then you add that on top of an interest note, like that's tough.
Yeah. Yep. That's, it's going to change the landscape a little bit and how things operate and work. And the Fed's made it pretty clear that even when they do stop raising rates, they're going to maintain the interest rates that they have for a while, and just, they might not be raising anything, but they're going to just kind of keep things status quo for a while to see what happens and really choke it back down. So we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. But it's 23 into 24 is going to be a interesting time just to watch and see what happens. And like you said, to kind of play things out and what that looks like. So it's a scary and fun time to be in the industry, I guess is the best way to put it.
There's one thing about it. We've seen challenges before.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah, this isn't anything new. This is just, it's just different. Different. So, all right, fellas. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys being on the podcast. Brad, folks want to get a hold of you. What's the best way to do that?
Just the 800 number, 800-657-4910, or my email, bgrafe@valleytransinc.com.
Right on. Parker, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
800-657-4910, or shoot me an email at pjohnson@valleytransinc.com.
Right on. Well, guys, I appreciate you being on, and look forward to seeing you guys in Nashville.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Casey.
Can't wait. We'll talk to you later.
All right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast, and go over to the YouTube channel to watch the video version of this at Moving Iron LLC, at the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Check that out there. Go to MovingIronLLC.com to get everything Moving Iron related and information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up here, Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th. If you want more information about that, send me an email at MovingIronPodcast at MovingIronPodcast.com, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Brad and Parker. Let's go be smart, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving